Welcome to Southwest Florida Real Estate Update, hosted by local realtors Jim, Michael, and Morgan York of the York Real Estate Group of Downing Fry Realty. Our show will bring you the most up-to-date information on the local real estate market, featuring the leading experts in the real estate field.
Hi, and welcome to the Southwest Florida Real Estate Update. I'm Michael York of the York Real Estate Group, and today we're joined by our host, Jim York, and his guest, Don Ross Jr., President of Ross Title and Escrow.
Thank you, Michael, for the introduction. Well, Mr. Ross.
Mr. York, how are you?
Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So let's just tell our viewers that have not seen you a little bit about yourself.
I am an attorney. I've been a member of the bar since 1981. I own Ross Title and Escrow, 7 people. They've been with me a long time, 30 years as my manager, and then 20 and 10. We do quite a few closings. I'm a shareholder in Downing Fry Realty. I've been the attorney for the company, so I get to see a lot of the issues posed by agents to the brokers. And I also have my own law firm. We're on 41 right across from Pastrami Dan's, and we do a fair amount of closings.
Yeah, you do a lot for us. So
I appreciate it very much.
So Don, 2019, our board has changed, made some changes to our contract.
They have?
Yep, they have quite a few.
Oh, wow.
And we're going to try and do this in a series of shows.
Whatever,
okay?
sure.
So let's start with the first one that they changed a little bit, is what's included in when you do a transaction.
Well, they fleshed out the definition of what is real property to include landscaping, shrubs, trees. You know, under the case law, it includes that intrinsically, but for a lay person who didn't go to law school, they might not know that. I mean, I've actually had situations where people were digging up trees on the day before closing, thinking they could take the screw palm with them. And they can't. So just to avoid confusion, they fleshed it out and said landscaping is part of the definition of real property on page 1.
And they're also supposed to maintain the property and the condition.
They're supposed to maintain. They've always been responsible for maintaining the property. They have fleshed out the seller's liability on landscaping. They now cap it at 1% of the purchase price. And it simply says the seller will be obligated for no more than 1% of the purchase price for any landscaping that was not properly maintained. And this is an IRMA a consequence. Mm-hmm. FAR bar, just for edification, always has had a different clause where instead of replacing trees, which is what Nabor has at this moment,
right.
You know, this new contract isn't in place yet, but right at this moment, Nabor requires the sellers to replace trees. FAR requires owners to prune or remove trees. So post-IRMA, I know the broker at Downing Fry, he probably lost 50 trees on his property, and if that were under contract, can you imagine the cost of going out and buying 50 new trees?
That'd be crazy.
It'd be crazy. So
yeah.
They're making an effort to put a cap on how much the homeowner would be liable for if we have another hurricane and a bunch of trees get knocked down.
Which I think is a good idea.
Yeah,
so.
and something would be nice.
Yeah.
It's not real clear though what happens if it goes to 1.5%, or if it's just 1% exactly, or if it's less than 1%, can the buyer opt for a credit? So they have deliberately made it ambiguous.
Right.
And there are many aspects of the Nabor contract where they make it ambiguous, thinking this will make it more usable in the future when unforeseen things come up. That's the general theory.
And that's why I was on this legal resource committee, and that's why it's nice every 2 years they change, because things do change, like what we just had with the hurricane. So financing, what changed there?
Well, nothing changed. I just thought it'd be nice to point out, because I have all the seminars I go to, nobody's ever really commented on this. The financing contingency clause in the Nabor contract, if you're buying a home for $1 million and it's subject to you getting an $800,000 loan, paragraph 4, the financing contingency says, that the buyer shall apply for a loan of at least the $800,000 in this hypothetical example. Which leaves room for the buyer to apply for a 95% loan rather than just the 80% loan. that's the entire opposite of FAR, the Florida Bar, the Florida Association of Realtors. There it's at most, or not to exceed, whatever dollar amount you put in there. So, the seller is in a better position to evaluate the probability of them getting a loan of that amount. So it's a subtle difference. Occasionally rears its ugly head, but it's there. So I wanted to point that out.
Well, that's good. About the surveys, what's changed there?
The surveys are a pain in the neck, to be very fair.
They are. They are.
I know we've touched on them many times, but they give the seller a certain number of days to give, or they give the buyer a certain number of days to give the survey to the buyer's agent, the buyer's title company, to raise title objections. It used to be 10 days. They made it 5 days. So they're giving the buyer more time to raise a survey issue and it's defined as a title defect under the contract. Sellers generally do not go looking for their old surveys. The contract says they will turn it over if they can. There's no financial penalty if they don't. And I try to educate realtors that it's in the seller's best interest to dig out that old survey, because if it's a good survey and it has the proper setbacks and there's no encroachments into any easements and so forth, in many cases the buyer may use that, and that saves the seller from the buyer having to go out and get their own. And with the improved laser technology and measuring, if the buyer had to get a new one and found a 1-inch encroachment, the fee, just the fee with Collier County for filing for an administrative variance is $1,000. And that doesn't include attorney's fees or anything else. It doesn't. So it really is a benefit to both the seller and the buyer, and it makes the deal go smoother.
Yeah, we always try and ask for that up front when the sellers are trying to sell.
Yeah, but they don't want to look for it, because why roll off the couch? What's the why? Right. Well, it might cost you $1,000 if there's a 1-inch encroachment. That's why.
It has, believe me. We've had that, especially in older houses.
I have it all the time. I mean, it's a common thing. So we try to educate. This is for your benefit.
Zoning changes. We have that in the contract.
They added that, and again, this we probably should have raised this initially. These are proposed changes. They're subject to more changes. Tentatively, may be released January 15th, but they've changed it a couple of times already, so who knows. But if the seller had applied for a zoning change, let's say they have agricultural and they want to change it to something else, if they do that between the effective date and the closing date and they give notice to the buyer now has 5 days to cancel. I've never had that come up, honestly, but it's there. It's nice to know it's there. I suppose it could come up, but generally we sell plotted property, and it's not an issue.
Well, Don, this was very informative. This is kind of like the first part of the series that we're doing on the new updated contracts, and then I'd like to have you come back on another show.
Another show? In 5 minutes?
In 5 minutes, and tell us about it, okay? Thank you.
Okay.
Thinking of buying or selling a home in Naples, Marco Island, Bonita, or Estero, Florida? Think of the most experienced York Real Estate Group, associated with the #1 brokerage in Southwest Florida, Downing Fry Realty, which produces yearly real estate transactions of over $1 billion. Jim, Michael, and Morgan make up the York Real Estate Group of Downing Fry Realty, with over $275 million in sales transactions, along with offering over 25 combined years' experience in the local market. The Yorks can offer the experience and trust you need in a realtor. Call them today at 239-273-6727 or visit their website at www.naplesyorkrealestate.com.
Looking for a real estate closing agent in Southwest Florida? Ross Title and Escrow has over 25 years experience and has closed over 20,000 residential real estate transactions. Donald Ross Jr., president of Ross Title and Escrow and a practicing attorney in the state of Florida with a degree in taxation, is here to service your needs. Call Mr. Ross or one of our 4 closing agents for a free consultation today.